shop, my name is Eric. So I got sent over a new case by Crystal Times Horology, which is the SKX Samurai conversion case. Essentially, you can build a Samurai mod using all of the parts that are available for the SKX. So let's take a look at the Bloodmoon SKX Samurai mod. Alright, so if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I like to start each build with the movement. Today, I'll be using the Seiko Instruments NH36 movement, which hacks, hand winds, and features a date complication. I start off by testing the operation of the movement, like the natural date change, quick set change, and oscillation of the balance wheel. I also check its timekeeping through my time grapher, and this movement is running at around 5 to 7 seconds per day with an acceptable beat error. Now I place the caliper into my brass movement holder in preparation for a new date wheel in black. Since I will be using a black dial, I like to match the wheel so that there isn't a large white block on the dial. I'm sure many of you guys would appreciate this as well. So I'm removing the date wheel, which allows me to access the inner plates and further onto the date wheel itself. Here is the new black date wheel itself, and just so you guys can see some of the behind the scenes action, I like to get really close up onto the movement while I'm working on it. This allows me to check the seating and alignment of parts without solely relying on my loop. Half the time I'm holding my breath, which makes me want to pass out, but it's for the sake of the movement. Now that the date wheel is in place, I can install the inner and outer calendar plates, which are held on by these small screws. Each screw is loosely installed, then once all of them are in place, I tighten everything up. I promise this advice isn't from an IKEA furniture manual, I picked it up from a JLC master watchmaker. Before I even get to the date wheel, I always check the operation of the date wheel that was just installed. Checking as you go is a good practice to follow since you'll be able to detect any issues in a shorter span of time. Of course, I give the inner plate and date wheel a thorough cleaning prior to installing them since I won't have access to these areas afterwards. And now that the black date wheels have been installed, I check the natural date change, quick set change, and give them a thorough cleaning. So for this build, I chose to use an OEM baby tuna dial. Obviously, it has the date cutout, applied indices, and red accents indicating the minutes. So this dial was purposed for a crown at 4 position case, but I'll be using a crown at 3 position case, so the dial feet must be removed. The feet are first cut off, then filed to ensure that it's completely flat, really thoroughly cleaned, and installed onto the movement with dial dots. Once the dial is in place, I like to check the date operation once more with the new parts installed. This step isn't really necessary, but my OCD tells me otherwise. Now the handset contains a really cool sword-shaped hour and minute hand with a red accented Marine Master style second hand. So the hour hand is oriented via my brass tweezers, then installed with my Bergen hand setters. After the spacing is checked, I test the operation of the hand and give it a nice clean. The minute and second hand essentially follow the same procedure, so each hand is orientated, pushed into place, checked for its spacing, tested, and cleaned. Once all 3 hands are installed, I give a final check for their alignment, action, and spacing. Of course, my OCD forces me to clean the dial. And here is the new Crystal Times SKX Samurai conversion case. Essentially, it is the same dimension as a standard Seiko Samurai, except this one is compatible with all SKX parts. This particular one is in a brush finish with drill lug holes and polished recessed portions on the sides. Although it came pretty clean, I still like to give the entire case a thorough cleaning. Moving on, I chose a black chaptering with red accents, and you can probably tell the direction I'm going for in this build. I installed some double-sided adhesive in order to prevent it from moving around and to get the alignment as perfect as possible. I like to have the movement temporarily installed for this step as well. So the crystal that I chose is a double dome sapphire crystal with red AR. Red AR is really interesting since it gives off a different shade of red depending on how it hits the light. The part is initially seated as evenly as possible, then installed with my version 6173 rack press. When installing crystals, it's typically a good idea to rotate the crystal as you push it into place to make sure it's perfectly parallel with the case. I love this press because it is perfectly calibrated, so rotational installation isn't necessary, but I do it regardless just to be safe. If you're working with a budget press, I highly recommend doing a rotational installation. Once the crystal is pressed in, I check the seating and give it a thorough cleaning with a separate piece of Rodico that I use for crystals only. Rodico does get dirty over time, so it's good to have a fresh piece for crystals. And now we are casing up the movement. This is my favorite step because we get a good idea of how the final build will look like. The crown I selected is the CT228 signed as crown because the recess and raised areas on the crown matched the side profile of the samurai case. The new stem is secured into my Persian pin vise, cut to size, and finished off on a file to remove any burrs and sharp edges. Of course, the end of the stem is cleaned and screwed onto the crown with a little bit of blue Loctite on it. Now the crown gasket is lubricated to ensure its 200 meter water resistance. Once the stem crown assembly is done, it's inserted into the watch and it tests all of the functions, so time setting, hacking, hand winding, and day-date setting. Lastly, the crown is screwed in all the way to check that it makes contact with the case itself. Now I temporarily close the case to work on the bezel mechanism. The click spring is installed and I lubricate the bezel gasket so that the bezel rotates smoothly. The bezel itself is the CT237, which has a Marine Master style edge. It's similar to the coin edge, but the edges are a bit larger. This part is carefully seated and installed by a rotating press. Once in place, I check the seating and action of the bezel, and in the case that the action isn't up to my standards, the entire bezel assembly is removed and adjusted until I'm satisfied with the clicks. On a side note, I was really impressed by how well the bezel design paired with the samurai case. Moving on to the insert, this is a sloped ceramic bezel insert with a red accented triangle on the 12 o'clock position. Obviously, I wanted to incorporate another touch of red. I applied some contact cement and carefully seated the insert while making sure the alignment was perfect. Now we can see the final design of this custom piece. I'm super happy with how well all of the parts flow with each other. Finally, on to the last few steps. I'm cleaning the underside of the movement and lubricating the case back gasket. The Sapphire display case bag is also thoroughly cleaned prior to being screwed on. And now the build is finalized with my version 5700. So what do you guys think? This is the Bloodmoon SKX Samurai mod. It was inspired by the different shades of red and black that's found on a Bloodmoon. This custom piece is for sale, so please shoot me an email if you would like to purchase it. I wanted to complement the angular design of the case with the Marine Master bezel edge, the crisp applied indices, and sharp store-like hands. Lug to lug, the distance is 48mm with a lug width of 22mm, very much like the standard Seiko Samurai. Thank you to Crystal Times for this collaboration, and I can't wait to see the new cases that are planned to be released. He always forgets. So, the sponsor of today's video is Lume. We offer modification services for your existing watch or complete builds from scratch, like this Bloodmoon SKX Samurai mod. So if you want to have work done on your watch or want to purchase a complete entire new custom watch, please shoot me an email. I can't believe I'm not being paid for this. I mean, I'm the best brand endorser. Hey. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.